Congressman, I know you've obviously watched this race particularly closely. You track them all. If Ed Gillespie ends up being close or winning this, and as Mike Feldman just pointed out, a lot of vote is out in Fairfax, which will presumably be good for Mark Warner. How has Ed Gillespie pieced together enough votes from which parts of the state, which demographic groups, to make this at least a close race at this hour?
You know, he has run very, very well outstate, in the rural areas. The 9th District, 7th District, 6th District down the 81 corridor.
What cities are down in those districts that people would recognize?
Well, it's not cities. It's really the rural areas. You lose the cities of Harrisonburg and Roanoke, but you take everything else down that corridor. You win the Richmond suburbs, but you lose big in the city of Richmond. Virginia is really two states. It's urban Virginia, particularly northern Virginia, and the cities, and then everything else. So it's two one-party states. We have not heard from Fairfax yet. I've looked at some returns there. Obviously, that's Mark Warner country. But Ed is doing better there than a lot of Republicans do statewide. He's got a 70,000 vote lead the last I saw. So, it's disappointed Republicans so many times in the past when they've been leading early and Northern Virginia comes in and wipes it out. But, Ed this time has united all factions of the party. And I think we're in for a long night.
You were a red state, then a purple state. Now with a Democratic governor, 2 Democratic senators, you've been and President Obama's victories there, you become kind of a blue state. One thing Ed has been a huge proponent of before he was a candidate was your party reaching out to people besides, if you'll pardon the expression, old white men. And I don't mean that in a negative way, just factual demographic. How do you think Ed did in targeting younger voters, non-white voters?
Well, younger voters and particularly ethnic voters in Northern Virginia and the suburbs and around the state, that has been a central part of his campaign. You've got to remember, he's done this under the radar screen. No cavalry came in. None of the interest groups and the super PACs came in to help him. So he has pieced together a very dysfunctional Republican Party and united it. And I think on the night is making this a real race.
Do you think, Congressman, do you think that Ed Gillespie also has been one of the few Republicans that we've seen this year who's been running on actual issues and has been putting forward actual ideas? Do you think that has been part of the thing that's been appealing for him in Virginia?
Well, I think so, but he's very positive. Ed is always an up guy when you talk about it. He is an optimist, and he is an inclusive person. He believes in a big tent for the Republican Party, an inviting party, if you will, and has put that invitation out in ethnic newspapers, ethnic broadcasts across the state. And I think that has always been the missing part of the Republicans being able to be the majority party in this state, is not including a lot of these ethnic newcomers that have come into the state.
Congressman, more nationally, I know, again, you follow stuff closely, a former congressman, but also a pretty savvy political analyst. We were debating before about whether the party put forward enough positive ideas, or specific ideas, the way Ed has, and some Republican leaders said, no, we don't need to do that. Where do you come down on that debate? Could Republicans have done even better had they been more specific about an agenda?
Well, they could, but remember, a lot of the super PACs were the ones that came in these states and ran these ads, and they were not positive. They were very negative in their tone. In Virginia, Ed didn't have that going for him with the negative tone, so he was able really to run his own campaign and not have the interference of outside groups, and it appears to have been successful. Even if he doesn't win, he is clearly positioned to lead this party and be a future statewide candidate.
Al Hunt?
Tom Davis, you know not only Virginia, but you know national politics like no one, like few do. I remember when you were in college, I don't remember, I've been told this story, Richard Nixon invited you to the White House to talk politics. So look at this national scene. What's the message tonight? What's going to happen as you look ahead to 2015?
Well, look, I think the 2016 race starts tomorrow. You're going to be having people meeting and grouping and the like, but I think the Republicans probably take the Senate, given the way things are going at this point. It may be overtime for them, but in Louisiana and Georgia, but clearly the indications are that way at this point. And they've got to put a work product together. They can't just now be anti. They're going to have to try to take very small majorities and turn these into budget resolutions and into legislation. Even if it's vetoed, try to get it out of the Senate, whether it's through the reconciliation process or attracting Democrats. And because these races in the midterm tend to be about the president, but the national elections, when you get a presidential race, they're about the future. And Republicans have really not articulated that in a lot of these races.
All right, quickly, give us your early handicapping of 2016 on your side.
I think it's way too early to say anything. I think you'll have a mainstream candidate. It could be a Bush or a Christie or a John Kasich, and then you'll have the alternative stream with Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and some others, and it's going to be an interesting race to watch it through the caucuses and the conventions.